Hey, Paul. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. How you doing today?
My pleasure. I love what I do, and I am busy in my mad scientist sales lab coming up with new combinations of words and phrases and other things to capture and lead your prospects' imagination and attention and get them to sell themselves, to convince themselves to buy. Because if you're not getting them to do 80% of the work of making the sale, you're working too hard and you're not making enough money.
I love that. Well, before we kind of jump into all of that good stuff, Paul, why don't you, just for quick introductions and backgrounds, give us the story of Paul and kind of like you have a decorated career, which we're going to get into. You have a lot of training and mindset stuff out there, which I know we're going to break down, but kind of give us the story of Paul, man. What's your background?
Well, I have an unusual background, and I don't always share this with the hosts because before the interview, because I like to spring it on people. So I'm just going to come right out and say it. I was introduced to the world of sales and persuasion and influence through my former career. And I'm just going to say it. My former career, as unusual as it sounds, was I was a pickup artist trainer. I took nerdy, impossibly to help guys who just couldn't get a date. Have you ever known a really good-hearted guy, a smart guy, who just couldn't get a date, couldn't get a relationship? He was stuck in the buddy zone, the friend zone. I would take guys like that and teach them how to communicate in ways that were emotionally evocative, so they actually became genuinely attractive. And the other side of that equation is I had to take these guys who were very broken, emotionally filled with shame, fear of no. As you're listening to me speaking, I'm wondering if you can identify with the fear of rejection, the fear of hearing the word no, or excuses that you know are BS. So I had to come up with ways of changing their mindset so they could hear that no as, oh, this is only an invitation to explore and invite in a more evocative way. So I had to so if I can take the most broken people around or the most troubled people around, get them past those problems, I can take the audience who's listening to me and very easily show them how to transform their stumbling blocks into their stepping stones. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's kind of dive into that a little bit. You're really big on words and the importance of the language you use. You have a book around it. Talk to me about kind of how you got to this mindset of how subtle words can really move a prospect into one stage of the sales process to the other. Just talk to me about like the importance of language and words, especially when it comes to sales.
To put it in highfalutin terms, language structures consciousness, shapes decisions, and drives behavior. And so there's a couple of conclusions that distill out of that first principle. First of all, you're never selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. Here's the thing. We all know that our most important decisions are not made logically. They bubble up from the subconscious or unconscious mind. Being a hypnotist, I use those terms interchangeably. So the way in which we communicate with the subconscious mind is through suggestion and implication. And I'm going to get into each and every one of these as we find time together and something called pattern interrupts. We'll give you specific examples. We know if we try to communicate through data, facts, reason, figures, there's a time and place for that. But if that's how we open up our sales conversation and continue to do it that way, we're probably not going to get the results that we could get otherwise. Now, I also want to preface this conversation with one other thing. I'm not here to replace your existing sales process, folks, if it's working for you. What I will say is it might be incomplete. Some of it might be outdated. So if you take just little pieces of the gold nuggets I'm going to drop today, then you'll try it for yourself. I have a free series that we're going to give away because what I teach is so wild and so out there. People say, can you prove it works? I say your own best results, your best proof. That's why I give away my Invisible Influence series. You can try it. Don't give me a penny. Try it on your own. Then once you see, wait a minute, this whacked out former pickup artist, his stuff really works, then you might be willing to enter into a conversation with me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So I guess where should we start?
Well, I think one thing we should do is dive into the general principles of how this whole process works. So remember, you're never selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. Does that make sense? You could even, if
Totally.
you fear sounding too salesy or somehow sales is manipulative, here comes a mic drop. Think of yourself as a decision service technician. Now, here's the thing. Decisions are made from different states of consciousness, different states of mind. We make our decisions based on our state of mind in the moment. Let me give you a metaphor if I can. Let's say we want to conduct a current of electricity. I have a sheet of gold foil and I have a sheet of cardboard. This is not a trick question. Which one of those is going to conduct the electricity better? It's not a trick question.
The foil.
Cardboard or the gold? Exactly, we know that instinctively. Consider the state of mind that your prospect's in to be like the gold foil or the cardboard, and your sales communication will be the current. If you send that current down the cardboard states of mind of not trusting you, not having focus, not believing in themselves that they can make a good decision, which, by the way, nowadays it's not enough to get them to trust you. Here's a big piece that's been missing in your sales process, folks. They have to trust that they are making a good decision, because prospects often don't trust that they're making a good decision. They have to trust themselves as well as trust you. It's a two-track process. Now, here's the thing. Why don't they trust themselves? Let's explore it just for a second, and stop me if I'm talking too much.
No, I love this. Keep going. This is great.
It's not my intent.
This is great.
So what gets in their way of trusting their ability to make a good decision? Well, first of all, they're distracted. We have too many things distracting us. We have this thing. One of your number one enemies to selling is this thing here, your smartphone. How many times are you checking it a day? I'm addicted to it. I'll admit it. So they're distracted. We have our smart device. We have Instagram. When I was a young man, we only had Telegram.
There you go.
Or Telegraph. There's Instagram, Twitter. I can't even come up with all of them. Tinder, not that I know anything about Tinder. Look at this face. I don't need it. So they're distracted. Second thing is they have too many options. They're bombarded with marketing. They have what I call marketing attention deficit disorder. And then finally, their trust has been betrayed quite often by politicians, by big money institutions. There's an institutionalized distrust of sales in general. So they don't trust themselves because they've been burned before. So how do you get them to trust that they're making a good decision? Well, first, so we need to create these states. One of the gold foil states is that state of trusting themselves as well as trusting you. The second gold foil state, if I want to push the metaphor, is focus. Because people are distracted, they just, even if they're interested at first, they're going to trail off. So focus. And by the way, folks, as you pause, take a breath, and allow yourself to focus on my words. I'm not sure all the ways you might find yourself entering a state of growing fascination. But as that continues to grow, the more you listen and learn, I think that's the way a person can understand a great exploration is taking place. Maybe even to the point where you discover yourself thinking, I've got to learn more from Paul. Anyway, that's a little example. Now, did I say anything specific?
No.
I was vague, and yet did you find yourself focusing in as I spoke?
Yeah, absolutely. I was wanting to learn more about Paul.
Exactly, because I implanted those suggestions. So that's just an example of how you do it. So
love it.
We want to first ask, before we do our sales presentation, or whatever it is, we want to ask ourselves the question, what states of mind, what states of consciousness do I want my prospects to be in, or my audience to be in? Now, the idea that selling is about creating states of consciousness is a whacked out way of looking at things. It's a completely outside the box way of looking. But it's the very ideas that stand so far outside of the way you're used to thinking and acting that hold the potential of bringing you results that are so much greater than what you're used to enjoying. Is this making sense so far?
Totally.
All right. So we want to create those states. And then we can begin to further move their decision-making process along. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So when you're at this phase and you've kind of gone through you've gotten them to trust themselves, they're focused in, now they're really kind of into the flow of your process. Are you picking up on any signals from your prospect throughout the way to kind of say, maybe we skip a step, or do you incorporate all 5 steps no matter what? How are you gauging your prospect when you're actually interacting with them, and how true do you stay to this process?
Well, you said 5-step process. I don't know what you're referring to there. Did I say there's a 5-step process?
I thought it was 5, but we've gone over 2 of the trust, the focus, and I thought there was going to be a few more. I could be mistaken.
Let me back up a bit. The first thing actually is, what state of mind do you want to be in? How do we create our own state of mind so that we show up where we're interested in the sale, but we're invested in our skills. In a breakfast, to use another metaphor, and I like to teach new metaphors, in a breakfast of bacon and eggs, one animal is invested, the other one is interested.
Love it.
And we know which is which. So we want to be interested in the sale, but invested in our skills. We also want to be devoted and dedicated without being demanding or despairing. Demanding is, I've got to make this sale, blah, blah, blah. Despairing is, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I reaching my quota? Or why aren't I expanding the way I want to expand? What's wrong? Blah, 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 blah. We want to find that easy middle ground to create that ideal state for us. And we also want to create a state, and this is going to be totally contrary to what you've been taught in every other sales course, where we don't have too much rapport. Because rapport can be dangerous and can destroy a sale. Have you ever heard that one before?
Oh, yeah, totally.
You've heard that rapport can destroy a sale?
I've heard that rapport could destroy a sale because you can talk yourself out of a sale.
That's not quite the same thing. Here's what I'm saying. When you're in rapport with someone, they're going to feel what you're feeling. They're going to match your feelings. Does that make sense? So if you're feeling nervous, or if you're feeling self-punishing, they're going to start feeling nervous, but they won't know why they're feeling that. They'll just assume you're not trustworthy.
Gotcha.
So you need to be careful with rapport. Only be in rapport if your own state is good. So we want to also look at your state to make sure that all that negative talk is turned down to a minimum. And I do teach this in my series, that we're outwardly focused. We're not in our head. We're paying attention to our prospects and how they're responding. Now, there's one area where you can't do this. Everything I teach, you can apply to doing online videos that are pre-recorded, the sales letters. That's much more trickier thing. But if it's an audience or someone who's in front of you or a couple who's in front of you, here's one of the things you look for. You look for, and I have to have a lot of clarity in how I describe this. You look for a degree of attention, what we call fixed focus. So if you see that they're not looking away, that they're looking strictly at you, you may see from time to time, if you're dealing with a couple, what we call a confirmation glance. They'll look over at their partner like that. That's just, and nod. That's just a confirmation that they're following along with you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I also want to say, and again, if I'm running too fast, I don't want to fire hose anybody.
No, I love this. I love what you're talking about.
Okay. And there's one more area where you want to break rapport, and that's destroying objections. We know objections are going to come up. I don't know, as you're listening to me, exactly what kind of sales you're doing, whether you're an entrepreneur, and if you're an entrepreneur, you got to be selling every day. you better be having a revenue generating activity. And whether that's you or your team, you're selling all the time. I'm sorry, but no, I'm not sorry. That's just how it goes. You're going to hear objections. I don't care why people are objecting. We can get into that later. But here's a common objection. I need more time to think it over. You ever hear that one?
Absolutely.
Here's where we use what we call in hypnosis a pattern interrupt. You see, people think, feel, and respond in fixed patterns. So when you break those patterns, what happens is they become temporarily suggestible. So let's role play. Just say to me, I need more time to think it over.
You know what, Paul? This sounds great, but I just need some more time to think about it.
Hey, you know what? I understand. I appreciate that. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever had the experience of taking a long time to think something over and it still turned out to be a horrible decision? Maybe it's not about time. Maybe it's not about time, but about the clarity you need to recognize you can feel safe moving forward today. So thinking about it like that, what do we need to clarify for you to recognize, yes, this is a good choice? So now what have we done? That objection is virtual. They have objection amnesia. They can't even go back to thinking that way, can they? They can't. This is what I call creating objection amnesia. And I teach this in my series. It's very powerful. This is something I learned from studying Ericksonian hypnosis. We don't need to go into what that is, but pattern interrupts create a temporary state of suggestibility. And then it gets me to redefine the meaning of the objection. Now what it's about is they're seeking clarity, which is true. Most of the time when your prospects object, it's because they're seeking clarity. They don't see the value, the ROI, or they don't trust that it'll work for them. Oftentimes when you're selling, you need to answer the following questions. Does it work? Will it work for me? How soon can I expect the results? What's the risk reversal? If there is any, what's the guarantee? So you interrupt the objection like that by doing a pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupts, again, require that you break rapport. So rapport is not always a good thing. There are times to break it.
That's making sense when you break it down like that, and especially if the objective's to get as much clarity as possible for your prospect, which goes back to one of your initial points is not only does your prospect need to trust you before making a decision, I love how you talk about they really need to trust themselves. And I want to go back to that a little bit more because I think that's overlooked often. And even in all of my years of selling, I've actually never really even looked at it like that. Like they have to trust themselves to make the right decision. What are some things you can do to kind of reassure that you're building that confidence on their end versus them just trying to trust you? The know, like, trust strategy. Everyone talks about it. But what can you do to get them to really reinforce the confidence that, no, they are making the right decision?
You do it through the power of suggestion and through talking vaguely. I'm going to do this right now for you listening and watching. And I'm assuming it's video too, correct?
Yep.
Because I do my hair and put on my best t-shirt. So this is going to seem like much, which is why I suggest that you watch and or listen to this multiple times. Even take notes, not now, but on the second or third listening. So I want to do this at the very beginning. I don't want to wait to get them to trust themselves. I want to suggest it right away. I would say something like this. Before we explore this opportunity together today, I just want to invite you to please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision is being made. Now let's look at that. That contains a lot. This contains what I call implied relationship words. We're implying a relationship. Before we, that's the first one. What does we imply? Not before I show you this marketing plan. Well, before I show you this marketing plan, that's what everybody says. That's something I'm doing to you. But if I say before we explore this opportunity together, we implies a relationship. Explore implies a relationship because when you do an exploration, you have to be together. Before we explore this opportunity Together implies a virtually states a relationship, but it's still implication. Implication is very powerful. Sometimes you don't make the message clear. Sometimes you don't make the message clear. This is another area where my system is completely different. Before we explore this opportunity together, I just want to invite you. An invitation, again, is something that you're doing with someone. It implies something of value. I just want to invite you to ask. Did I say ask the questions? No, I said share the questions. What's the difference between asking a question and sharing a question? When you ask, it's something that one person's doing to another. When you share, it's something that you're doing together. To share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision's being made. You see, now, did I say a great decision to buy today? You're going to make a great decision to buy today? I kept it vague.
No.
So sometimes when you're vague and don't make them, when you keep it vague, the unconscious mind has to dive down, go down, and come up with a meaning for them. Does that make sense? Now, you're thinking, well, what if the unconscious comes up with a meaning that they're going to make a great decision not to buy from you today? Well, remember, you've suggested that you're in it together. That means the unconscious mind will already think, okay, I can trust myself to make that decision to go forward. So implying relationships, being vague, and making the outright suggestion a great decision is being made. And remember, I'm not saying what the decision is, who's making the decision, when or why. I'm deliberately vague. I'm making the message unclear. So here's to review. You're not selling your product or service. You're selling decisions and good feelings about decision. Rapport can be dangerous. Don't make the message clear. These are all concepts that are completely outside the box. But it's the things that are outside the box that give you the opportunity to get exponential increases rather than incremental increases. If you do the same stuff that you've been doing, you can push down on the gas, but you'll still get just incremental increases. Or what your competition is doing, then it becomes a foot race. Can I get to my prospect faster than they can? You have to really go outside the box. Einstein said that you can't solve a problem through the way of thinking that created the problem. I believe that. I'm mangling his quote, but Einstein also said, I didn't say half the crap that people say I said on the internet.
Yeah, there you go. That's so funny. Paul, man, this is really interesting. I love your take on how you approach the sales process. You make it very humanized, and we're big on really simplifying every sales process you have, making a connection, and making it about the human versus the product and service, which it sounds like you're very big on. Tell me, what's one thing you're actually always selling, no matter the industry that you're in? You could be in janitorial, you could be in tech, it doesn't matter. What's one thing that you always are selling no matter what?
Well, as I'll reiterate again, you're always selling decisions or good feelings about decisions. That's it.
That simple. It's really that simple, isn't it?
It's that simple. Now, executing it requires some steps. The steps don't require struggle. They do require some effort. Struggle is effort that's laced with old messages of, I can't do it, or what's the use, or this is too high to get a sale. There's never, ever a big client. There's only greater opportunities to serve. No client or sale or deal is out of your league when you know how to step up to the plate. That's what I found.
How big is that? You kind of sparked something there for me. How big is a belief system when it comes to your capability to sell?
It's crucial. It is absolutely crucial. Our beliefs are filters through which we look at our world. We don't see our world subjectively. So in one of my core disciplines, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, you've been exposed to it through Tony Robbins. I think everyone knows Tony. I'll leave my opinions out of how I think he does it. He's a great marketer. No, he's a great marketer. Bless his heart for that. How can I put this?
NLP.
I'm sorry.
Belief system and selling.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I was
in
just
NLP,
thinking
we
what
say
your
we
belief.
distort. Yeah. In NLP, we distort, we delete, and we generalize. So our beliefs will distort what's going on around us. They will delete possibilities. We won't even see the possibility, the opportunity right in front of us because we're thinking all this negative, carbonized crap. And they generalize. Well, I failed this time, so therefore it's always going to fail. I always have, and et cetera, et cetera. You literally can't see what you've done right. And this is, again, something that every sales training I've seen and gone through, and I've gone through a lot of them, they don't teach you how to learn from your mistakes. I don't care what to say. There are a lot of good ones out there. Let me just, because it seems like I'm throwing dirt on them. Sandler is really good. Have you ever taken the Sandler system?
Love Sandler, yeah.
Very good training. Excellent training. And what they're leaving out, I believe, is a real, methodical, systematic way of learning from your mistakes and programming in the right way to do things once you learn from your mistakes. This is what I call learning confidence. It's a different kind of confidence. It says, I have a system that either I will get what I want or I will joyously and powerfully learn the skill I need to get what I want or better. And so what's unique about what I'm doing here is I have a system to learn from every experience. You've always heard people say, well, just learn from every experience. You've heard that. Does anyone ever give you a specific system and process of how to do that?
Nope.
No. So again, it's not that trainings like Sandler are bad. They're excellent. I recommend Sandler to a lot of people. It's that they're incomplete. And that's a big piece to be missing. Now, I had to learn this because so many of my pickup students were so impacted. They could rehearse what I say, but when they went out to the field, their old ways of thinking and feeling would come up, and they just blow it. And so they couldn't learn. All they saw was their failures. I had to train them. It takes training in a challenging area of life or an area that's embedded and entwined with ego and emotion. It takes training to see what you've done right and to extract the lesson. Everyone says extract the lesson, but no one tells you how. And when I first heard that in seminars, it really pissed me off. It's like, okay, my car, I don't know anything about automobiles. I can put gas in the tank. It's like my car is broken down in the desert. My cell phone has on 2% power. I managed to get to the mechanic. He says, oh, from what you described, you just have to make an adjustment to the phragostat using the what's it. And then the cell phone dies. Well, if I knew how to do that, I would have done it. Thanks. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So a big part of mindset.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. Visualizing, positive thinking, writing out your goals. I believe in all that. It's required. But oftentimes to make, again, exponential leaps, particularly in something new or in areas of life, money is always a challenging one, and your sales skills will produce your revenue. There's ego and a lot of limiting beliefs, and it's laced with emotions. You really do need a systematic way to learn from every experience, because otherwise you get false confidence. Oh, I know I can do it, but you're repeating your mistakes and you're not really acquiring the skills. That's why I believe there's.
Absolutely.
I'm talking too much. Sorry, I'm talking too much. I'll stop.
No, I love that. I definitely
That's
think
why
false
I think there's a big.
confidence is real.
I think there's a big. This is why. I think this gap is the. It's not that if you're not where you want to be, it's not because you have a mysterious lack of something called self-esteem or a lack of something called confidence. Although, as I define it, it's that you simply have a crappy learning strategy, and you're just that learning strategy is causing you to focus on the mistake, and your brain. Here's the law of the mind. Your mind can't tell, or your brain can't tell the difference between what you're dwelling on and what you're programming it to do, and it will only do what you program it to do. So when you dwell on a mistake and say, what did I do wrong? Why can't I get it right? You're dwelling on that mistake, even subconsciously, and then you're programming it back in. Not because you hate yourself or you're a loser. It's just an effort and intent to learn that just doesn't work.
Do you have any? I love the fact that you just said that. I believe true leaders are true learners. One of our core beliefs as a company is to continually learn. And I've even caught myself at times, like one of my biggest insecurities is, oh, I'm not smart enough. And it's like, no, you are fucking smart enough. Look what you've achieved in your life. You have this self-limiting belief that you're not, which has actually held you back. What are some learning tips? I don't know if you even know any off the top of your head.
Right now. Let me be, if you're coachable, I can change that limiting belief right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's what doesn't work. I am smart enough. I am smart enough. I am smart enough. That's just going to create a lot of internal friction. I don't believe that, in that case, listen to me, please. I don't believe in that case positive affirmations will work. You'll just create a conflict. And any conflict between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind is going to kick the conscious mind in the ass. That's just the way it works. So I would encourage you to put these 3 magic words. I'm going to drop another value bomb. I really only share this with my clients, but what the hell, I'm loving this interview. Here we go. Here are the 3 magic words. Up until now. Up until now, it was my interpretation that I was not smart enough. So try to say that out loud with me. First of all, say I'm not smart enough.
I'm not smart enough.
And now say up until now. Say it along with me.
Up until now.
It was my
Up
interpretation.
until now. It was my interpretation.
That I was not smart enough.
That I was not smart enough. So up until now, it was my interpretation that I was not smart enough.
And now I claim.
It's in the past. Yep.
See what that
now
does?
I claim.
Hold on. My apologies. Those 3 words, up until now, what do? They're taking the belief, they're acknowledging that, all right, I had this belief, and maybe there are some cases where I did act like a dumbass, and as you would say, we're using the F-bomb, fucked it up. But what does it do? Up until now, gets rapport with the unconscious mind. It says, okay, unconscious, I have all these memories and all these times where I've repeated this belief. I got it. I'm not denying it. And you're binding it in time. Limiting beliefs, one of the challenges with limiting beliefs are they're unbound in time. It's as if you've always believed them, you always will believe them, and you believe them now and you always will believe them. When it's not bound in time, and now I'm getting way too complicated, but whether or not
I love this.
Whether or not you understand me now, or you find folks that you understand me through repeat watchings and listening to this, because I really think you need to. When something is unbound in time, it begins to infect your identity. It becomes who you are.
Yep.
And beliefs about identity are hard to change. Beliefs about skill are relatively easy to change, because we all have the experience of acquiring new skills. Everyone who's ridden a bicycle had to acquire that skill. Excuse me.
I love that. I'm taking that note right now.
When you use those words, it binds the limiting belief or behavior in time, and it divorces it from being your identity. It just makes your interpretation of your prior experience.
Jeez,
this
man.
is why
I think that's great.
This is why I'm pointing out again, traditional methods of just the affirmation that's positive, the opposite, the negative one, it's very difficult. I am smart. 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 Blah, 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 blah. And your unconscious is going, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. Not.
I get it.
I want to, how can I address this? If, as you're listening, watching this, you feel that I've been fire hosing you, that's not my intent. My intent is just that I love teaching and training and changing people. And so it may appear I'm fire hosing. I will say I deeply appreciate the time you've given me. It is only a fraction of what I know. I've been doing this one form or another for 30 years. So if I'm fire hosing you, I got bad news. It's only a fraction of what I can share with you.
No, I think it's good. You have substance to what you talk about, and you're one of those guests to where I know we're going to have to cut time short with
I'm
so much
sorry.
more left unsaid. No, and no, I think that's a good thing because there's so much substance. Like there, we could go for round 2, 3, and 4 because I know you have that 30-year knowledge. Versus some guests, we have to stretch 20 minutes, right? That's not the case here. But I will say this, Paul, to kind of wrap up here. I have two last questions for you. One's along the lines of what we talked about, and one's kind of a fun one we do at the end with every single guest.
Love it. Throw out my
The professional one, let's say, if we have a busy commercial cleaner that runs a $1 million company listening to this right now, sales
My place
entrepreneur.
could use it. My place could use some hazard cleaning.
Oh, there. Well, all right. Well, there's a nice plug there. But if you got a service-based business owner listening to this, their life's chaotic. They know they need to hit the next level of success in their business. What's one thing that you recommend that they work on starting today?
Wow, that's a big one. I would, because it's both inner and what you're doing your intrapersonal communication, and then your interpersonal communication. I'm going to sound like I'm self-serving, but it's you serving. Opt in to get my tech series, and we'll teach you this stuff in little tiny bite size. Go out and try it in your own sales process, and you'll see immediate results. I labored on this for like a year to not fire hose, to get little usable bites that you can try out for yourself. I would say do that. Get started with little tiny pieces.
I love it. And since we're on that topic, how can people opt in and find you? Since we're already talking about this.
So if what I've been saying really resonates with you, and in whatever way you see that this could be really useful for you, I have my Invisible Influence series. It's 5 parts. It's really, really digestible bits that you can go out and use immediately. It's easy to get. Text the word compel, COMPEL, to the number 411-321. 411-321. And as soon as you get the reply, make sure you put in your best email. That's the way we'll get the goodies to you.
So text compel to, what was the number one more time?
411-321. In fact, here's what I'd recommend y'all do. As you're watching the replay of this, take a minute, pause the recording, open your phone immediately, because you cannot afford not to get going with this. Open your phone immediately and just find yourself texting it in, put in your best email address. I'll get this to you, and again, they're very bite-sized nuggets that you can use to immediately apply. Because as I've said, the way I teach makes a lot of sense, but it also is so far outside the traditional model. The only way you can guarantee that you might want to work with me or receive more from me is see the result first.
Love it. And we'll definitely link that in the show notes below. So if you are listening or watching, just check out the text below. And then we'll also have Paul's website there as well. Hey, Paul, the last question I have for you, man, the more fun one, and I can't thank you enough for your time today. I think this has been incredibly valuable and would love to have you back on. But we do this thing called question roulette. There's a white box, or that was the black box, and then we have a white box. Black box, white box. Random questions, no idea what's in them. What one would you like to choose from, the white box or the black box?
Let's go with the black box today.
90% of our guests say the black box. It's kind of funny. All right, the black box. No idea what these questions could be. Here, this is a good one, and I feel like it's definitely a good one for you. Paul, when you die, what's one thing you want to be remembered for?
I want people to say he was the greatest teacher I ever met.
Love it. That was very clear. You knew the answer to that one. I love that.
That's my life's purpose. I've thought about this too. What do I want to be able to say, have people say and remember me for? He's the best teacher I ever had, by far.
Awesome. Well, you guys, if you're hearing Paul right now and you like what he had to say, check out the show notes, give him a text, check out his website. Paul, we're going to plug you up and down the board on our end, and thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for the privilege of allowing me to be the person who has led your audience on this exploration of things that really, really work. And I hope they will continue to remain in touch with me. There's so much more that I can offer, and without fire hosing in useful bits, as I said in that Invisible Influence series.
Awesome, man. That was great stuff.